Hi, I'm Charles Edel, and welcome to another episode of Pacific Policy Pulse. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome our old friend David Capie, Director of the Center for Strategic Studies in New Zealand and Professor of International Relations at the University of Victoria, here to discuss with us his trip, the Prime Minister's trip, and a number of other things. David, welcome into CSIS.
Thanks, Charlie. Great to be with you.
So can you tell us what brings you here to Washington? You were just telling me that this is the first time you've been here since pre-COVID time.
It is. 2019 was the last time I was here, and here for a couple of reasons. First of all, I was pleased to be part of your colleague Greg Polling's excellent annual South China Sea Conference yesterday, which was a great day of discussions. But obviously, it's been the NATO Summit, the 75th anniversary summit here for the last few days. And of course, on the sidelines of the summit have been the IP4 leaders, including the Prime Minister of New Zealand. So it's been an opportunity to watch some of the dramas and the conversations of that up somewhat close.
Actually, on this IP4, on this NATO Summit, as you said, this is a relatively new PM who's here in Washington. I'm curious, just doing an assessment, when you look at the relatively new New Zealand government, what is the top priority in terms of foreign policy? How do you see, is it a reorientation coming out of the beehive at this point?
So the government's been in power for about a little over 6 months, and a lot of New Zealand foreign policy is bipartisan. There's no doubt about that. But I think there are some changes in emphasis from this new government. They've been very explicit about wanting to lean into the traditional partnerships, especially the US and Australian relationships. They've been very clear about feeling that they've got to get out and hustle more in the region, talk New Zealand's book, talk about New Zealand's interests. And so we've seen Foreign Minister Winston Peters travelling like a demon. The Prime Minister himself has been travelling a lot. And I also think there's been a bit of a rebalancing between kind of security and economic priorities, that there's a bit more emphasis on security concerns in what looks like a very challenging strategic environment for New Zealand.
How did this week itself, NATO IP4, go for the Prime Minister?
I think it went really well. I mean, it was his first big international summit. So for a Prime Minister of a comparatively small country, it's a great opportunity just to meet a lot of people in one go. So obviously he got to meet the President briefly, he worked the Hill and saw people there, but he also got a suite of NATO leaders, and of course some of those are important European leaders, Macron and others, in their own right. So it was a lot of those first encounters, building relationships. But I think it was a very successful visit.
Great. Now, most important question, as a professor, as one academic to another, what are you reading right now?
Oh, well, Charlie...
you don't have to say an academic book.
No, it's a sad reflection of my life. My wife always gives me a lot of grief for it, that I almost only read nonfiction. In the summer, I might get a crime novel out or something, but I'm a nonfiction reader. And the book I've been reading recently that I'm absolutely loving is a history of Indonesia's independence called Revolusi. By David van Reybrouck, which is an absolutely stupendous history, hundreds and hundreds of years, a history of colonialism and Indonesia's fight for independence, told through documentary analysis, but also so many vivid interviews with people. It's just a brilliant, brilliant book.
Yeah, no, I've seen the reviews for this. It looks great. But look, thanks so much for swinging by CSIS. We hope to visit you down in Wellington soon.
I hope so, Charlie. It'd be great. Thanks for having me.
And thanks very much for joining us for another episode of Pacific Policy Pulse.